Mr. Farooq Nadeem has already published a book which is available on Amazon titled Different Experiences of Layman. I am very much hopeful and I believe that today's webinar is going to be very fruitful and our participants are going to take huge advantage of the experiences of Mr. Farooq Nadeem. So I hereby invite our worthy resource person, Mr. Farooq Nadeem, to kindly take over the stage. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Rahman. Can you hear me well?
Yes, absolutely.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Rahman, and thank you, ma'am. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu, and good evening. Good evening, everyone. Adab to all. So, communication. Why I actually I'm doing this session is because this MPowerUrge company. If you look at the tagline, so their tagline itself says that we try to bridge the gaps, and that is one of the main motivation that actually made me collaborate with this particular team. I have seen their past webinars. They have done a really good job. They are providing the training and hiring assistance to the corporate market as well as the local market as well. So their vision is something which actually helped me and motivated me to come up today and teach in front of you about what is the importance of communication is and why it is really very important for our youth to concentrate on the communication part. So I first of all thank MPowerUrge to giving me the opportunity to talk to the students of the college. And now I will quickly jump to the introduction of mine. I wanted to first thanks MPowerUrge for having me here. And actually, I wanted to have a very different mode of introduction, but then since we have already lost considerable time, so I have to just cut short that. So as Mr. Rahman already introduced me, so I have almost like 17 plus IT experience. And if I count my days of teaching and some years of journalism as well, so it actually amounts to 22 years. So 22 years of experience in various companies, various institutes that I've been part of. And the good part is, all through these years, I always somehow got the opportunity to teach students and interact with them. And basically, teaching is one of, I would say, is my hobby. And when it comes to do sessions with the with students or university students and people who are actually seeking counseling or mentoring session, somehow I can't resist attending those webinars. So that's one of the motivating factor that inspires me to take all these sessions. So right, so here we go. I would not take too much time in all my backgrounds and all. So communication, if you look at the first slide that I have prepared, communication is derived from the word commune. So I don't know how many of you have seen or Googled what is the breakup of the word communication. But if you look at it, communication word comes from the word commune. And what commune is? Commune is a society or a set of people which who would like to share their responsibilities, share their possessions and all, right? So the word itself is very the nature of the word communication is very collaborative. And if you pick some of the letters inside the word communication, the reason that I have highlighted you and I, so communication can never be one way. It is always the matter of you, I, they, we, they, right? So it cannot be unidirectional unless there is a purpose behind that unidirectional flow. So similarly, I want this session to be a little interactive, right? So do not hesitate asking questions, right? Although I have kept some time for questions in the end itself. But just in case, if you have any questions, I would appreciate and encourage you guys to post your questions in the chat window. I'll keep looking at that, okay? And if you have a good network available, I don't mind you unmuting yourself and asking the questions as well directly on phone. All right, so what happens, thanks for moving on to the next slide. So before talking about communication, I would like to give you certain examples of what miscommunication leads to, right? And as Mr. Rahman talked about a communication cycle, so what happens when the communication cycle breaks up, right? So if you look at the first cartoon, I don't want to read the cartoon itself, but then there is a lady who is trying to talk to a person, and that person is on mobile, right? She is trying to convey a message, but the person is on mobile, and he is talking about any chances of playing squash, right? Whereas the lady is talking about sandworms, planet, and all, right? So that is, these are some of the areas which actually breaks the communication cycle. If you look at it, miscommunication has a miss in it. You miss something. When you miscommunicate, you miss the gist of the communication somewhere. Similarly, in the second cartoon, if you look at it, the originator of the communication is saying something, right? He's saying our consultant says we have to listen more effectively and improve our communication skills. And the subsequent person is saying, spills what spills? And the latter one is saying, he says he has forgotten his pills. Okay. So almost we lost the track. If we are losing, if we are missing some part of the communication, we can lose the track big time. And as a result of which, if you look at the left-hand corner of my slide, it talks about a survey that was done for some considerable number of companies, which actually cites the quote that if there is a miscommunication, what could be the impact of it? And if you look at the number, it is almost like $420,000 loss just because of miscommunication, which is almost like $0.5 million just because of miscommunication, right? So for example, I'll try to connect what I mean here. So for example, some years back, there's a company in Noida that's called EXL. Some of you might have heard about the name. So this company, what was happening, like it was mainly a call center, right? And many of you might be aware that call centers have their own deadlines, and they have certain goals to achieve in day-to-day activity, right? So what was happening is there are 4 offices in Noida of this company. There are 4 towers, and one tower was, what was happening was one tower had all the employees coming 10 minutes late, to be specific, ranging from 10 to 30 minutes. They always were approaching to the office 10 to 30 minutes late. And no, everyone was flabbergasted that what is the reason, why this is the only tower which is actually hampering the productivity of the office. And as you say, as you know, there are geniuses in office. So some of them started talking about a big belt project of quality. I don't know how many of you know big belt, Six Sigma, and all. These are some of the things which actually takes care of the quality of the company. So they started a Six Sigma project on this problem because it was this problem was almost like stretching from uh, 3 to 6 months, I believe. And there was a lot of hue and cry that why people are not coming on time. What is the reason? What is the problem? And then they started the project on this particular problem. They said that the problem statement was written that certain employees of the company are not coming to the office on time, and it is hampering the productivity and all. And as a result of which, they started interviewing people. They started reaching out to different departments. They started talking about the problem. Okay, and what happened suddenly in one of the communication, they actually reached out to the administrative help desk. And while they were talking, the person who was taking the interview, he actually looked at his wristwatch. I'm talking about the days when people used to wear wristwatches. So he actually looked at his wristwatch, and then he looked at the main clock that was there in the administrative office. And to his surprise, the wall clock was actually 20 minutes behind, and the entire office was running just on the basis of that one wall clock. Okay, and as a result of which, the entire black belt project or Six Sigma project got closed. The problem was simple. Somebody has to climb up the chair. They had to just put the new cells in the wall clock and had to adjust the time, and that's it. So this is one of the example where the communication, or where I would say communication is not about just verbal communication. It is about lot many things. It actually talks about your personality. How if you are if you are a person who believes communication is important, it actually makes you it makes you punctual. It makes you a person who actually sticks to the principles and all. And I would say that miscommunication led to the problem, such a big problem. And this is where this slide talks about small little glitches in the communication leads to huge amount of loss, right? So miscommunication is definitely a barrier in the industry, be it educational industry, be it a corporate industry, be it whatever. So I actually wanted to look into the negative part first, and miscommunication could be in any form. Then why? Can we move to the next slide, please? Right. So in a nutshell, communication is all about transfer of thoughts, right? And right now, what I am doing, I'm talking to you, all of you. I don't know. It will be evident after the end of the session whether I was able to make my point or not. But at this point of time, I'm trying to transfer my thoughts unilaterally. Okay. And probably in between the session, if you guys will start asking the questions, okay, probably I'll have some insight about whether you are actually understanding what I am trying to convey, right? So sometimes unidirectional thoughts are required, but then how the message is transferred. So if you look at the image, there is a person who is transferring the information, and there are certain set of people. Okay. So any guesses what I'm actually trying to I don't have control of mouse, but I would ask the coordinator if he can actually move the mouse on the first image on the right hand side, the first image, right? Yeah, absolutely. So anyone who can guess what is the state of mind of this person? What is he thinking? Any guesses? Any anyone on chat window, or you can unmute yourself and probably talk to me about it. Come on, this is a communication session. We need to interact. All right. I don't know whether the cartoon is not too good for you, but then the first person is actually scratching the head. So scratching the head. All right. So I'll repeat my question. In this particular slide, what is happening is one person is transferring his thought, or he's simply talking to multiple set of people. Okay. He's transferring the knowledge, and I have actually tried to categorize the audience into three categories basically. So the first category is at the top, a person who is just scratching the head. So what do you think this person is, what is the state of mind this person is in right now?
He's in a state of confusion, I think.
He's in a state of confusion, right? So he is confused, absolutely. How about the second person? He is actually saluting. So what does that mean?
Which one, sir?
The second one?
Second one.
He
Below the
understands.
first.
He understands. He appreciates. Absolutely. So
Standing
he's getting the knowledge.
yeah, he is in a position to decode the message, to decode the information that the sender has sent.
Right. So I believe you might have read some of the articles on the communication. That is why you came up with the word decode. Let's make it little simpler. He is trying to understand the message, and he is actually understanding the message, right?
Yes.
So
Yes.
let's keep the communication channel simple. Okay. Let's not use the heavy words like decoding and encryption and all, right?
Okay. Okay.
Now the third message, third image, sorry. The guy is actually putting both the hands on his ear. What does that mean? Stressed, that is getting over his head. Yeah, he is not understanding, or he is not too interested in receiving the message, right?
Yes. Yes.
Right. So this entire picture, what it is depicting, communication can never be unidirectional. Even if somebody is speaking, right, you need to acknowledge. You need to acknowledge whether you are getting the message clearly, you are not getting the message clearly, you are in a confused state, or you really don't want to understand what is happening, right? So it's simply the transfer of thoughts from one individual, or from many individual to one individual, many individual to many individual. It could be multiple channels, but the core is we are transferring the thoughts from one individual to the another, right? And the individual who is imparting that thought needs to receive the feedback for sure, right? One person needs to, the person who is actually trying to convey the message should, I would say, ought to receive the feedback. Otherwise, he will not understand whether the message was conveyed clearly or not. That is why if you look, if you see a lot of webinars these days, webinars or any kind of seminars, at the end of that seminar, there is always a survey form, right? So normally what happens, 90% of audience doesn't care about that feedback form. But I tell you, that is the one of the most important thing that a speaker or the person who is transferring the knowledge is seeking for. That particular feedback always help to improve, right? So this communication is a responsibility of both the parties, one who is sending the information and the one who is receiving the information, right? So that's about, in a nutshell, what communication in a very high level it is. So I'll take a pause. Any questions regarding this particular slide or the thoughts that I have conveyed here? You agree, you disagree, you feel that this is not something which you were expecting? Are you the person who is scratching the head, or are you the one who is saluting me, or are you the one who is actually looking into the mobile and looking to the Twitter, where what Mr. Narendra Modi conveyed today to the nation? What do you feel? Is the thought correct? Is the thought out of sorts? Are we okay moving ahead?
Yeah, we can move ahead.
Sure, thank you. So let me move ahead. So why it is important? Why communication is too important? All right. So it is basically a general transfer of information. That is the basic, right? It is just a transfer of information from the source to the destination and vice versa, right? It is a two-way street, right? Communication is a constant cycle of receiving and giving the messages, right? And what it actually helps us to achieve as a student or as a receiver of the webinar or a seminar or a recipient of a meeting, what it actually helps us with, it provides us information. Do we agree? Right? It provides us information about a topic. For example, if Mr. Satya Nadella is talking about a T20 cricket league happening in US, right? He's actually imparting the knowledge that there is a cricket tournament he is investing in, which, right? He is trying to invest money in a cricket tournament, T20 tournament in US. That's the information, unidirectional information as part of his communication. Communication, how can it actually help? It actually advise or counsel people, right? It helps people get certain kind of knowledge, advice from their colleagues, right? It can be a counseling session for a teacher to the student, right? It could be a counseling session of a leader to his public, right? It could be advice of a psychologist to his patient. It could be advice of a doctor to the patient, right? In a crux, if you look at it, there is always a transfer of knowledge, right? Communication is the basis of education. I am pretty sure, you being a college, if you will not communicate to the students, what will they achieve? They will not achieve anything, right? It is basically the education which you are getting out of this communication, right? Sorry? Is there anything that somebody wants to convey? All right, maybe some kind of distraction. And what is this distraction known as in communication? Let me tell you, it is actually a form of barrier, right? It's a noise barrier, right? So any
Sir,
sorry, yeah, go ahead.
excuse me, sir. I request the participants to kindly mute their audio mics, and when required, only unmute them. Kindly mute them. Kindly mute your mics, please.
Yeah, you can unmute if you are having a question for me, or probably you can actually put your question in the chat window. I think that will be better, Mr. Rahman.
Yeah, absolutely. No,
Okay.
if they want to ask even, they can unmute them, but till then, kindly mute them.
Sure. So that is always a challenge with these virtual seminars. All right. So communication helps in education, right? What else? What else communication does? Imagine there is a coach or a mentor The example of a coach or a mentor. If a coach or a mentor is not able to communicate, what will happen? There's no need for a coach or a mentor then, right? If somebody is not able to motivate or coach somebody. So by the way, I know you guys are not too interactive, but still I wanted to understand. Do you know what is the difference between a coach and a mentor? Why do we need a coach? All right. What is the difference between coaching and mentoring? Any idea? See, again, I have a habit to ask question because I believe in Socrates. Socrates, I'm not saying my faith is Socratic, but I'm saying I have a style of teaching which actually is inspired by Socrates, right? I always keep asking the question, and once I'll ask questions, then only something gets cleared, right? Asking question, probing always helps, right? All right. Okay. So coaches and mentors. Coach always conveys message on a specific topic. And if you look at some of the famous coaches, not necessarily the coaches are expert of their subject. It is basically their motivational quotes, the way they address their pupil, the way they address their disciples, right? The way they communicate to their students, that actually makes them a perfect coach, right? So it is all about communication there as well. So communication, again, the motivation part is a output of communication. You cannot, unless and until there may be hardly 1% or 2% areas where there might be a sign language that might be helping out people to understand what is the motive of transferring the thoughts from one individual to another. But otherwise, communication, two-way communication, verbal communication is always a key in motivating people. Similarly, persuasion, not too different from motivation, right? So persuasion, you are persuading someone to do something, right? If somebody is low at confidence, you have to persuade, you have to tell people that you have that gut, you have that I would say that X factor that may actually make he or she do the job, that basically persuasion of doing certain things, right? So again, so these information, advice, counseling, education, motivation, persuasion, all are the outcomes of the communication, right? And communication, as I said, it could be verbal, it could be non-verbal as well. So when we do verbal communication, it is mostly oral communication, right? It is a written communication that we do, right? Can somebody give me examples of verbal or verbal communication? Any examples in day-to-day life?
Like this webinar.
Like this webinar, right?
Delivering the lecture.
Delivering the lecture. So what is that? Am I communicating with my hand? It's oral, right? Oral communication. And what is the example of written communication?
When we read
letters,
Letters, report writing, emailing, right?
yeah,
Survey
CV,
filling, feedback
curriculum
giving.
vitae, resume, biodata.
Absolutely. Bang on. Right? So these are the modes of verbal communication that people can see. But what happens, let me just pick some part of verbal communication. So how many of you feel that verbal communication is all about talking, is all about speaking? Are there any other factors involved in verbal communication? Can I just quickly switch to other next slide, coordinator? Right. So in the interest of time, I'll reduce my questions. I'll try to convey the message I'm trying to make here. So what happens? The verbal communication, what is it? If you look at the pie graph on the left, I will not read it. It is just the right hand side is just for your fact, basically. But then if you look at the chart, if you listen well, right, you can comprehend well, and you can pose correct questions, and maybe, right, and maybe you can further communicate this message to the other audience. Probably you can pass on that message better, right? So it is a proven fact that listening almost composes as in it's like 50% of communication, right? So if you look at the first slide, where I talked about miscommunication, people were speaking, right? They were speaking. They were just speaking, not just to convey their message, not to understand what they are trying to convey, not to make people understand their message, right? They were just talking. So the key to a good communication is all about listening, active listening, right? You need to be physically, you need to be mentally at the place where you are available, right? You have to be mentally there, right? And in my organization where I work, there is a concept of be here now. Be here now. BEHERE, here, now, NOW. So when you are in a specific session, you have to be mentally and physically available to listen, right? So according to the experts, industry experts, listening actually constitutes almost like 50%. Speaking, why speaking is important? Unless and until if you will listen well, then only you can speak well. That is a proven fact. If you are understanding certain things, you will be in a position to ask questions. And asking question is a very good quality. No question is a silly question, right? Always stress, the expert always stress on the fact that asking question is one of the best quality to inculcate knowledge in you, to grasp the knowledge in yourself. More the questions you will ask, more the knowledge you will gain, right? So first thing, listening. Second part is speaking. Right? When you listen, you speak, you gain knowledge, then only you can write and read, right? But then there is another view that if you are in a position who can understand the philosophy of books, right? And I personally feel reading is one of the best medicine for any individual. If you have a habit of reading, and in today's world also, I have a habit. I don't rely on media news channels. I have a habit. I pick up the Hindu newspaper in the morning, and I go through it, at least the headlines. I still believe in the print media. I have a habit of reading. But before reading, probably you need to be a person who can comprehend well, right? So first thing first, make yourself an active listener. follow the policy of be here now, okay, and then start speaking. And then again, this is speaking part is again a very important factor. Don't use heavy Shakespeare like words, right? Nobody will understand that. Maybe there are scholars who may able to understand what you are trying to convey, but a good communication is always a simple communication which actually resonates well with the common audience. Not everyone is actually a literary guy, right? So make the communication channel little simple, right? So can we go back to the previous slide, please? No, previous slide. All right. So verbal communication, of course, as I said, you ought to understand your when you are doing verbal communication, it is very important for you to understand your audience. And I don't know. I actually asked the host of this session to share a Google form with you, specifically to understand my knowledge, my audience, right? That way I could have conveyed the message well, but I don't know right now. I don't know what feedback you are brewing in your minds right now, but then I always try to understand my audience first before actually imparting the knowledge. So when you are doing verbal communication, you ought to understand your audience. Then only you will be able to convey the message. The topic that you are going to talk about. If I at this point of time, if I'll start talking about cricket or movies or politics, I don't think that will make sense. My objective of today's session is about communication. Why communication is important, right? Why is it necessary for us to communicate well? Okay. So be specific to the agenda of the session that you are taking, right? How you are actually using your voice modulation, when to raise your pitch, right? When to raise your pitch, when to be little mild in your voice. You need to know that. There are certain situations in leadership sessions. If you go, I don't know how many of you are from corporate world, but then there is always a session on situational leadership. Situational leadership actually talks about lot of aspects, but one aspect that actually resonates well for me is situational leadership. And as part of situational leadership, experts say that your pitch of the voice is very crucial while imparting your message, right? It is not necessary for you to start beating a child. Maybe your pitch of the voice can actually help the child understand that you are not in a good mood, right? So your pitch, the voice, should actually convey the message to the other person that you are in a good mood, or you are in a bad mood, or you are trying to stress on a specific topic, or you're trying to emphasize on certain factors, right? So your pitch of the voice becomes really important in verbal communication. And non-verbal communication, I would say, consciously or non-consciously, there are a lot of things that we do through non-verbal communication. At this point of time, maybe my child is going across the room. I just stare on the child and he will understand not to disturb me, right? So that is a non-verbal communication, that he should not disturb me. You are making signs like this. What does this mean? What is this sign for? Anyone? Just wanted to understand. My audience is not sleeping. What is this sign for? Victory. Absolutely right. Right. So there are certain signs which doesn't require any verbal communication. So your verbal communication and non-verbal communication are something which works in tandem. I don't know how many of you noticed, while imparting the lecture, there are certain situations where I actually use my hand, right? There are certain situations where I am not using my hands at all, right? So it's like a synchronization of verbal and non-verbal communication, right? So it goes hand in hand. Now maybe probably you can move forward, and yeah, further one. Before I actually look into the communication aspect of that is very important in a student's life, I would try to emphasize 2-3 more minutes about how important a communication part is in a professional's life, right? Imagine the fact you are, and I'm not talking about, in fact, I can talk about IAS interviews as well. If you, I'm not sure how many of you are from, or maybe trying any UPSC exams or civil services exams, but when you go for interview, there are at least 5 or 6 panelists sitting in the room, right? And not everyone actually asks questions. Got the point? Not everyone is actually asking the questions. Out of 5, probably 3 may ask you the question. 2 of the panelists are specifically looking to your body language, how you are interacting with how you are trying to cope with the pressure of the interview, right? Or it is not only about civil service or anywhere. I also go to different colleges for mass hirings and all, IITs, NITs, etc. I don't expect a final year student to be expert in computer programming. All I wanted to understand or try to make out from, or try to observe whether a person is able to convey his message properly. Is he comfortably be sitting in the room, right? Sorry for murmuring. Whether the person is actually comfortable with the environment, whether the person is actually able to understand what I am trying to convey. I don't expect him to be expert in my line. I want him to be able to comprehend what I am trying to convey is the key. And out of 1,000 students that I am getting in a college, we just pick 2-3 people and see the margin of error. The margin of error is very, very minimal. It's all about how you sell yourself, how you are actually conveying message to the interviewer. First, out of 1,000 people, maybe half of them or 60% of them gets filtered when a test is given. Okay, their writing skills or computer programming skill is tested there. And then out of 400 people, we just select 1 or 2 or 3 or at the max 10. So see the percentage of people we are selecting. So there is hardly any margin of error. So what is key there is how clearly you are conveying the thoughts, right? How you are able to impress the person and express. Before impress, you need to express, right? Impression doesn't mean everything. You may be, of course, clothing matters. Of course, clothing matters. Everything matters. You can be in a very good formal wear, but if you are able to express your ideas well, that is the key for any decent interviewer, right? So that's how the corporate world works. So in professional life, communication is completely a boon. A good communication is completely a boon. And I have seen there are people who are not technically sound, but then if their communication is well, some of them are actually they have climbed the ladder like anything. They are VPs of the company, they are directors of the company, because they are able to understand the client request, and they are then passing that client request or requirements very cleanly to his team, right? So that comprehension part, that ability to convey the message well, the ability to understand the message that has been given to him, and then selling your product to the market successfully. Everything revolves around your communication. All right, so since I'm actually communicating with a college, and I'm expecting, I don't know how many students are there in this lecture, but then my focus was basically around students only. So why communication is important in students' life? If you look at the point number 1, learning from your teachers is again a communication aspect. If you'll actively learn from your teacher, you can pose questions. And if you can pose questions correctly, you can get the answers completely right, and you can get to the root of the topic very easily, right? When you are able to communicate well, you can become friendly. Okay, you may have people from Nigeria, you may have people from Saudi Arabia, you may have people from Australia. If you are, or you, for example, you are going to Canada. These days Canada is a fashion, so you are going to Canada. If you are able to communicate well, you can understand their culture, and you can make the other person understand your culture, right? So you can survive in a diverse environment, right? As I said, there is a lot of competition, and if you are able to convey your message clearly to the interviewer, you stands out. No, if you know your society well, right, then you can, the Darwin's concept of what was that concept? Anyone? Survival of the fittest, right? If you know your vicinity, you can survive well, right? Know your surroundings, right? And of course, communication skill. Maybe now you may have got the idea of the point that I have written here. Developing communication skills allow students build a professional approach in their career. If you follow the principles of communication well, of be here now, particularly I am very, very impressed by this particular topic of be here now. If you are be here now, it means you are disciplined. Your discipline comes into the picture. And if you are disciplined, you are somebody who doesn't require too much hand holding, right? You understand your responsibilities well. So basically, if you follow the tenets of communication, it makes you a better professional. I think the third last point is something which everyone does in today's society, the social networking sites and all, right? Everyone is actually using them, so I don't have to emphasize on that. But my caveat here is, as for me, I actually use only Twitter to get to know about what the politicians or what the individuals are conveying to the society today, and LinkedIn, of course. LinkedIn is to connect the individuals, the professionals across the world, right? And I think I already emphasized on the second last point and last point already, that communication, a balanced approach in communication, is an hallmark of a well-educated person, right? So a good communication actually, it actually makes a comfortable zone around you. People, you becomes approachable. People doesn't hesitate to approach you if you are a person who likes to take the questions, right? So a balanced communication is a hallmark of a well-educated person, and that's where I would like to end my lecture, because I think that's what the timing was given to me. I am open for questions. I don't know if I was able to make the point clear here, but I'll get the questions here, I can try to clarify your doubts also. I had many other examples also, but then we started the session a little late, so I'm sorry about that. I have to be little cognizant of time, so wanted to stop here, and I am open for questions. Mr. Rahman.
Thank you very much, sir. If there is any question on part of the participants, they are requested to kindly unmute themselves and ask the question. Even they can just write the question in the chat box. Any questions from the audience?
See, one important, somebody has actually asked me a question, and before replying to your question, Redmi Note 7 is not your identity. Okay, so you should be proud of your identity, and you should actually clearly mention your name. Anyway, I still would like to address your questions. Yes, sir. Please go ahead with your question. Mr. Redmi Note, Miss Redmi Note 7. Can I get your question, please? Yeah, go ahead, please unmute.
Yes, sir. Assalamu alaikum, sir.
Walaikum assalam wa rahmatullah.
Sir, my name is Musab, sir, and I am one of the students who is currently learning in the college. And I have some, actually, I want to ask you a basic question, that where are you from actually?
Why?
Where are you from actually?
Where I am from actually?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. You are resident actually.
Okay, so don't go by my face.
Sir, no,
I tell you the reason. I have been recognized as a Kashmiri. I have been recognized as a Irani. I have been recognized as Afghani. Okay, so don't go by my face. I am a pure delight Delhi resident, born and brought up in Delhi. My parents are from UP.
Okay, sir. Sir, firstly, I want to ask you a question about the Kashmir, that a question that always was circulating in my mind, that is there any opportunity in corporate world in basically in Kashmir, Jammu and Kashmir?
This question is basically not for me. It is for government to decide.
That's why I told you about the corporate sector. I thought that you would also.
No, so this question is basically about government policy, whether they want to set up something in Kashmir. I don't know whether you already have something in Kashmir with regards to corporate sector, but yeah, it is a huge market. It is up to government to decide whether they want to set up the corporates there. But I welcome you to, if you want to come to the National Capital Region, NCR, Noida, Gurgaon, Delhi, or maybe try some other cities as well. You are most welcome. And if you want to understand the nitty-gritties of the corporate world, you can definitely pose your questions with the MPowerUrge team. I'll be more than happy to help you out.
Yes,
and one more thing, Mr. Musaib. Firstly, thank you very much that you came up with the question that confidently. I appreciate that. Okay. And thought never circulates in mind. That's a wrong English. I'll ask you to Google it. What is the right English there? Thought never circulates in mind. Okay. I'm sorry, I'm giving you a feedback upfront, but I believe in a very straightforward communication. Yes, sir. Any more questions for me?
Hello, good evening, sir.
Yep, good evening.
So this is Shaukat from Department of Economics. Sir, I want to ask a very question that how can we develop listening skills, because we live in a world where everybody wants to be a speaker and nobody wants to be a listener. So can you share your own experience or some tips? How can we develop listening skills in ourselves?
Okay. During this 1.5 hour session, I never picked my mobile. Okay.
Yes, sir.
That's number one tip. Mobile technology is a boon, I tell you. But everything in the world has its own side effects, right? If you keep the balance in place, then you are okay. But follow the concept of be here now. Did you understand the concept of be here now?
Yes, sir.
If you are talking to me right now, you have to be focused there, right? I don't know whether you understand Urdu or not.
Yes, sir.
एक आपने वो देखा होगा घोड़े के इधर वो बंधा होता है ना आंखों के ऊपर, राइट?
Yes.
वो कहते हैं लोग, उसको दो तरह से इस्तेमाल किया जाता है कि यार ऐसे मत चलो हमेशा कि तुम इधर उधर देखो ही ना, ठीक है? वो ठीक है, बट जब आपको फोकस्ड होके काम करना है तो ये बड़ा जरूरी है ना? यू हैव टू बी अ वेरी एक्टिव लिसनर, एंड टू बी एक्टिव लिसनर सबसे बड़ी डिस्ट्रैक्शन दैट यू हैव टू रिमूव इज कीप योर मोबाइल. एक पूरे दिन में मोबाइल का टाइम सेट कर लीजिए कि आई हैव टू लुक इनटू माय मोबाइल 15 minutes in the morning, 15 minutes after the lunch break, 15 minutes at the night. That's it. मोबाइल में ऐसा कुछ भी नहीं आता जो बहुत ही इंपॉर्टेंट है, एक्सेप्ट रूमर्स, फेक न्यूज, व्हाटएवर, कुछ भी नहीं आता. So that's the number one tip I would say. And then of course listen to the videos, English videos, communication videos as much as you can. Try to comprehend them. Okay? Try to catch the phrases also. देखिए मुहावरे होते हैं हमारी लैंग्वेज में, ऐसे ही इंग्लिश में भी होते हैं. एंड वन मोर थिंग, गुड कम्युनिकेशन डजंट मीन कि इंग्लिश अच्छी होनी चाहिए, ठीक है? इट्स नॉट अबाउट इंग्लिश अच्छी होनी चाहिए. It is about how confidently, how clearly you are conveying the message, right?
Yes.
So to cut short the long story, सबसे पहले तो you keep the mobile aside, and whatever you are doing, follow the principle of be here now. I hope I answer your question.
सर, इसमें आपने एक बात भी कही कि वीडियो हमें देखनी चाहिए डिफरेंट स्पीकर्स के,
Right.
तो वो वीडियो इटसेल्फ सर हम मोबाइल फोन में ही देखते हैं, तो फिर मोबाइल से हम किस तरह जान छुड़ाएं?
देखिए ये तो आपको पता है कि आप मोबाइल किस नियत से, लेजर, LEISURE, लेजर के लिए अगर आप इस्तेमाल करें तो 15 मिनट सुबह, 15 मिनट दोपहर लंच के बाद, 15 मिनट रात में. बट पढ़ाई के लिए तो हु हैज स्टॉप्ड यू टू गो ऑन गूगल? मतलब कॉर्पोरेट इंडस्ट्री अगर गूगल आज बंद हो जाए ना, तो प्रोग्रामिंग की दुनिया बंद हो जाएगी. 99% कंपनियां बंद हो जाएंगी अगर गूगल बंद हो जाए तो. इट इज नॉट अबाउट इंटरनेट, आई एम टॉकिंग अबाउट मोबाइल, जो लेजर के लिए, मजे के लिए जो आप यूज करते हैं, वो बंद कर दीजिए. लेकिन आप देखिए आजकल वर्चुअल ये कोरोना का जो ड्रामा चल रहा है, इसमें क्या है, एवरीथिंग इज वर्चुअल, राइट? सो आप बिना इंटरनेट के तो कुछ कर ही नहीं सकते, राइट?
ओके सर, थैंक यू.
Any other question from the participant side?
Hello, excuse me, sir.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
So, do you think that we should pay more attention to accuracy or fluency when we communicate something?
Accuracy of?
Accuracy or fluency?
Fluency.
Yes, sir.
Of course, fluency अगर आपकी अच्छी है, if your fluency is good, so it helps. But एक मैंने point बोला कि you need to understand your audience, right? If you are going in Australian accent within an Indian crowd, I don't know. मतलब मैं Indian crowd वो कह रहा हूँ जो actually that actually forms India. I'm not talking about the elite class. I'm talking about the common man. If you are going with Australian accent, it is all about rounded kind of communication, right? So fluency is always good, but at times you need to be a little slow, right? You need to be a little slow, and you need to convey your message clearly. Of course, fluency does matter. Fluency is for you, but at the end of the day, if you have to impart a message clearly, you need to understand your audience first.
Thank you, sir.
Sir, did you know anything about a company secretary? Company secretary, what do you know about, what do you want to know about company secretary? It's a course that I know. It's a company secretary course. Musaib Saab. Company secretary is a course. It's a good one of the, I would say, a very reputed job in certain companies. You are a person who actually audits company, audits the records of the company. You keep track of the legal formalities of the company. So obviously it's a good profession, but if you can be specific in your question, I can answer that. Any more questions, please? I was expecting a lot of questions on communication.
Okay, any more questions from participant side?
If not, then it is time to communicate to Almighty also.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So I suppose we shall stop it here.
Yes, sir.
All right, it was pleasure talking to all of you, and I would look forward to the feedback session, feedback form that has been given to you. So please provide
Okay.
your feedback.
Okay.
And yeah.
Okay. Thank you very much, Mr. Farooq Nadeem. What I could understand presentation, it was very beautifully presented, and I suppose in future the communication skill is going to be the USP. And as we all know that in this ever-changing world, it is not only the knowledge that you are gathering, but how you present that knowledge, that is very important.
Mhm.
So for that, you need to build upon your communication skill and work very hard. I again thank you from the core of my heart. Now I request Professor Shaukat Rashid Shah to kindly propose the vote of thanks.
Also,
Professor Shaukat Rashid,
Thank
over to
you,
you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
also,
Yes, sir.
also, this is Dr. Shaukat. Sorry, I was stuck somewhere. I have a very simple question. If this speaker will allow me to answer.
Okay, please go ahead. Mr. Farooq Sahab, Farooq Nadeem Sahab.
Yeah, please go ahead, sir.
Okay, thank you very much, sir. I'm sorry for late questioning. I was stuck somewhere. So I have a very basic question, although I was listening to your speech very keenly from last 20 minutes. Sir, how can we develop soft skills at the workplace? I mean, apart from communication, as we know, communication has a very important role in developing soft skills. But apart from communication, what type of skills that we need to build upon at the workplace to be a successful, I mean, manager or any other personality? I mean, how to develop soft skills in the workplace, but apart from communication. Communication, as we know, that has an important role. But apart from communication, is there any specific way to develop the skills to be a successful leader in the workplace?
Yeah, so I'll not give a very long answer. My answer would be, first, you need to understand your industry.
Yes.
What industry you are part of. Okay. If, for example, if you are in a software world, you need
Yes.
to understand the best practices of your trade, right? You need to understand the nitty-gritties of that trade. For example, if you are a PA to your boss, you need to understand the email writing skills.
Yes.
What is the right procedure to write the email?
Email.
Okay.
Yes. Yes.
Okay. If you are in a accounting world, what are the shortcuts then that will make your job easier, but not at the expense of accuracy?
Yes.
Right. And whatever be the industry today, the world is moving towards automation, right? So whatever work you are doing, how efficiently we can reduce the time and increase the productivity is the key. Right?
Yes. Yes.
So that's my short answer to you. I hope I was able to convey. If you have any other question on that part, I am open to answer that as well.
I got your answer, but can you please elaborate more on how to develop a learning mindset? I mean, what is the role of learning mindset to be a successful? I mean,
learning is never ending.
Yes.
First of all, your attitude, make your attitude like that. Since I am from IT industry, I cannot afford to relax at any particular point. ठीक है?
Yes. Yes.
मेरा ये है कि आज मैं C sharp कर रहा हूँ. Okay, C sharp as a language कर रहा हूँ. अब Python आ गई.
Yes.
अब cloud आ गया. अब blockchain आ गई. So I don't know whether you were there at the one of the slide actually talked about कि communication में the most important part is आपके surrounding की know how आपको बहुत clearly पता होना चाहिए.
Yes, yes, exactly.
कि need of the hour क्या है? Need of the hour अगर ये है कि you have to keep learning, you have to improve your skill sets हमेशा, तो then you have to be open with your, मतलब बहुत सीधी सी चीज है. अगर आप redundant हो गए मार्केट में, और स्पेशली आई एम टॉकिंग अबाउट द कॉर्पोरेट वर्ल्ड, अगर आप मार्केट में redundant हो गए, कोई पैसा नहीं देगा आपको.
Absolutely right.
Although director software engineering, I am at the post of director software engineering in my company, I give at least 30 minutes for my own learning.
Yes, yes.
Otherwise, I will not survive. I am telling you.
Exactly.
Right. So वो attitude towards learning तो हमेशा रहना ही है. देखिए, मैं अगर religion की बात करूं, कोई भी आलिम आज तक ढंग से नहीं बैठा है. हमेशा वो कुछ ना कुछ कुरेदता रहता है.
Absolutely right.
Right. So, or obviously, since most of you are from Islamic background, Iqra is your first word that was revealed by Allah to the people.
The Quran.
So,
yes, yes.
Iqra आ गया तो फिर तो बात ही खत्म हो गई ना. You have to learn. You have to read. Keep on reading. There's no end to knowledge.
Yes.
Right.
Absolutely right. Okay. Thank you. Thank you very much, sir. Thank you, Adil sir. Thank you.
Thank you, Shauk sir, for asking this question, and thank you, sir, for answering. I would conclude. I would like to thank our worthy principal, sir, Professor Mushtaq Ahmad Loan, sir, under whose guidance this program was organized. I'm also highly thankful to MPowerUrge firm for collaborating with our college in organizing this webinar. My special thanks goes to today's esteemed resource person, Mr. Farooq Nadeem, for his beautiful presentation. The way he presented his content was very outstanding. A special mention goes to Career Counseling Cell, which worked very tirelessly in making this program a success. I would like to pay my sincere thanks to Professor Saida Laila Khalid for presenting her welcome address. A special tribute goes to Professor Adil Rahman for carrying out the proceedings of today's program and presenting the introductory address. Last but not least, I would like to thank all the participants and all the students. Thank you all.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Walaikum salam.